Hello. Welcome to the Black Magic Collective live stream on the director script supervisor relationship. I am Monique Sorgan. I'm a director. I'm here with Karen Ruby, who is a script supervisor. And we initially met in the Black Magic Collective Filmmaker Advancement Initiative, which was an initiative where people really focused on accountability about moving forward the aspects of their career that they wanted. And Karen often talked about trying to get more days to make it into the union as a script supervisor. I had been on a lot of sets with script supervisors there, a lot of professional television sets, but I had never actually been able to afford a script supervisor on any of my own sets. And then during the fellowship, I got hired to direct a short film called Random Check, which had enough budget to hire all the roles. So I asked Karen to come work on it as my script supervisor. And today we're going to talk about sort of what we went through on that film with the hope of sort of going over the process to show you the value of what a script supervisor can bring to the process. So, Karen, hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. So my first question for you is, when you get a script, what is the first thing that you do?
I read it. Then I read it again. Then I read it again. So the first time I'm just reading it to understand the story and just get a first impression, right? And then I read it again and I look a little bit more closely. I'm looking for logical or story inconsistencies. There's not always that, but I look for it just to make sure. Anything that bumps me, and I start making a list of those things with the intention of having a conversation later with the director or the writer or both or whoever is, the right person given the project. Then I read it again and I look for potential continuity issues, time inconsistencies. In this story, time was extremely important.
Yeah, so this is a story. It's called Random Check. It's about a woman who wears a hijab who gets racially profiled at the airport in San Diego on her way to Comic-Con. And the whole time, and this is a true story, and the whole time she was trying to make it to the opening night Marvel event that she had paid extra for, and it was really important to her because she flew all the way from Kuwait to do this event. So as she's being held back and sort of like harassed, if you will, and annoyed for hours, they're going through her suitcases in front of everyone, like she's constantly looking at her watch and trying to figure out if she's going to make it to this event by the end of the movie.
Right. So time was very important. And so I started making a detailed breakdown of the time when each scene happened, which some of the times were in the script written out and some of them were not. And so using the times that were in the script, I based my day-night breakdown, which in this case was just one day and it was a time schedule. And so in that, I found some hiccups or things that didn't make sense to me. And so then we went through that along with other questions, and we actually did adjust a couple of times in the film.
Yeah, so Karen basically asked me, what time does this scene? So it's like 3 scenes that show the passage of time. The first 2 are daytime, and the third one is a nighttime scene. So she asked me, like, what time does this scene take place? What time does this scene take place? We also had to pay attention to, like, the night scene. What time we said on the night scene, we asked ourselves, okay, Comic-Con takes place in the summertime. How far is it after the summer solstice? Are the days long? Are they short? How far is San Diego from the equator? Like, what time does the sun actually go down? Like little things like that, that when you're writing a script or you're directing a script, you don't really think about. But somebody watching the film might be like, it's not night at that time.
Right. Yeah. And for the lighting, we want to make sure that what time does it actually get dark, so that we're tracking that when we're on set. And so that's part of what I'm doing in the breakdown. And then once that's all settled, then I create my actual full breakdown. And then I circulate that to all the department heads.
Okay, and what is your breakdown exactly? And also, I know the AD does a breakdown, like how is yours different? But first, can you show us like what your breakdown looks like and Jen, I think you might have like an example.
There we go. So I don't know if everyone can see it very well, but in a lot of ways, it does look like the AD breakdown. I'm tracking all of the props and the costumes and the set and, anything that is important to the scene. But one thing that I make sure to do is I'm reading the script and I'm looking forwards and I'm looking backwards. And so if there's an object of importance 3 scenes away, and we're in the same location, I know 3 scenes prior, that object needs to be in that script. And so I make sure to put all those things in my breakdown where they live. I also have,
like, for example, just to be clear, like if someone takes out a phone 3 scenes from now, you need to know where that phone is in the scene. Like, is it in someone's purse? Is it on the table? And it needs to already exist in the scene 3 scenes before the part where the phone actually plays, right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you. The other thing you can see on my breakdown, you can see interior airport lavatory day. To the right, it says D1. So I'm tracking the story days there. Then the time in this one, like I said, the time was really important. So I keyed in the exact time that each scene is taking place. In other films, that's not as important. It'll say day, afternoon, or whatever. And then this is actually the completed breakdown. So it has the actual running time and the day we shot it, and it's marked as complete.
So yeah, so when we were shooting it, you were timing how long it went from like action to cut.
Yeah, I time every take. And then what I do is I estimate in my head. So for scene 1, if we took multiple setups, I estimate in my head how it plays out. And I estimated that that scene, can I read it, was about 12 seconds long, even though we shot, I don't know, offhand how much we were shooting, in scene 1, but we weren't, of course, going to use all of that. So I'm estimating how long the actual running time is going to be as we go forward, which is really an important thing for knowing the length of your project. The other thing that we were going to talk about is the pre-timing, which is a whole separate thing, right? That one of the things that script supervisors can do, it's not always included in our breakdown or in our prep work, is a pre-timing to understand the estimate of how long this project is going to run, which is very important for television, films, all that, to know exactly how long it's supposed to run. So what script supervisors do is we act out the entire film or TV show and we time it by scene and we do the actions and we run around and we say it in the different voices. And then for things that we can't physically enact, like a car crash, per se, we'll imagine it on our head and time it. And so we get, some script supervisors are like really good at this and can, like, to the minute estimate the time of a feature film. And then, studios use that for budgeting and deciding if they're going to keep all the scenes or not shoot all the scenes, or if it's running short, they'll need more.
Awesome. Is I mean, like, I almost feel like you should film that and make a TikTok of it.
It's embarrassing sometimes. Yeah,
that's why it's a great TikTok.
It would be fun.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that, like, you as a script supervisor want us to know about prep that would take?
I mean, a lot of times in the non-union world specifically, although I am aware that it does happen in the union world, is there's this whole non-understanding of what script supervisors are doing in pre-production and not wanting to pay script supervisors for their prep days, because a lot of people, I think, don't understand all of the things that I'm doing, all the reading of the scripts, all the conversations. We changed in this script, we changed a couple of things in the script based on not just the time, but also there was an issue with the lock that I noticed in reading the script, right? Because this took place prior to the TSA.
The lock on the suitcase is what we're talking about.
Right. And so there was a line in the script that sort of bumped me about that. If the scene, if the story was taking place in present day, which it was, even though it was based on something from before. And so we just made a minor change. And that's a lot of things that script supervisors are doing is we're
Yeah,
finding
so
things.
just to be specific so people understand what we're saying. So there was a line in the script where basically he has her suitcases, he wants to open them and sort of sift through them to make sure there's no, bomb making materials in them. And he says, what's the code? Right. But Karen had gone and done the research for us to find out that there's such a thing as like TSA locks that you are required to have, or you're not allowed to lock your bag anymore. And I think this started after 9/11. So she had me add a line that said, this is not a TSA lock. And then what's the code? So
Well,
it was
yeah,
just,
give me the code or I have to break it or something.
yeah, give it to me or I'll have to break it. Like,
Yeah.
basically, that was a line that wasn't originally in the script that's in the actual movie now because of Karen's preliminary work, just making sure that everything has veracity and makes sense in the real world. Yeah. And then also considering how much prep you're doing and how much you're like trying to basically, I guess, look out for continuity errors even before we get to set.
Yeah, fix it
Um,
and prep.
yeah, fix it and prep. Exactly. Well, so I was just going to say, like, I can really see the value of, and again, something that didn't necessarily happen on my shoot and that doesn't necessarily happen on independent shoots, the value of like inviting you to the location scouts and the production meetings so that like that can, because I feel like,
I love being invited to production meetings. I'm almost always invited to at least one production meeting, but I love going to the location scouts too because I can point out things then that'll save time. It's like we'll be in a location and I know in my head we've got to get a close up on this one item because it's really important to the story. And they're saying, oh, we'll put the camera here, we'll put the camera there, and it's not always. A lot of times I'm just like there quiet, absorbing, understanding. Okay. And even if it's just that, then it helps me do a better job on the day because I already know what we're doing. I'm already up to speed. But sometimes I
yeah,
can things out to change where they put the camera. I mean, not often, but it has happened. Yeah.
yeah, so that's an important thing to like remember to think about. Like on this shoot, we were pretty hodgepodge. We were like one location scout with just me and the DP, and one location scout with me and the art department and the wardrobe department together. They were together at least, but yeah, it was just whenever we could actually go visit the location, whenever they would let us in. But yeah, so I think like that pretty much covers prep, right?
Yeah. I feel really good about that.
Okay, cool. So like now we get into production. And as a director, one thing I really enjoyed was being in production with a script supervisor. I didn't feel like I had to be as responsible for tracking all the continuity and remembering all the takes I liked because in production, she's paying attention to like what hand they lift the blow dryer with or which way they turned. And if I like a take, I can just say, print that or circle that, or I like that. And even if I just casually say to the actors, oh, I really liked that, she'll make a note, you know? So that was really useful for me as a director to be able to like take one thing out of my mental space while I'm thinking about a million things. What are some things, Karen, that you're looking for when you're at all the departments? Because like Karen,
Mhm.
you're looking at like the camera department, the wardrobe department, you're keeping an eye, even as those people are on set looking out for their own department, you're also keeping an eye on it, right?
Yeah.
What are some things you're looking out for in all those
Yeah,
departments?
well, and it starts on rehearsal, right? When we're doing camera rehearsals and things like that, I'm watching to know what the actions are, what the camera moves are, if props are going to need to be reset. I'm taking pictures of the actors in their costume and hair and makeup, either before we shoot or right after we shoot the first take so that I can have that to match later, right? I'm double checking everything with my breakdown to make sure that everything that needs to be there is there because sometimes the main lead department head isn't there and they have a fill-in and they maybe don't know or they don't have my breakdown or they didn't. So I'm double checking. I've got everybody's back, just making sure that everything that needs to be there is there. And a lot of times it's just me going, yep, 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 yep. Or sometimes it's like whispering in people's ears, just making sure, is that thing in the purse, and just like not making a whole production right about it, but just making sure, double checking everything is there to make everything be smooth on set. So it's not like, oh, cut, where's that thing? That wastes time and money, and then once we start shooting, I'm watching everything, right? I'm watching the screen to make sure that the boom and the flags and the light, nothing else is in the shot that shouldn't be. I'm watching the focus. If the focus is off, I'll write it in my notes, no good focus. I'm watching the script and the dialogue to make sure that the actors are saying the correct lines. And if they're not, and then I'll find out, because it's never my job to say, that's wrong. I have to always ask, is that okay? They changed it, and if I notice that the dialogue changes the meaning, I really want to make sure that the director understands that. Like, is that okay? Are you good with that? Because then it maybe won't match later, things like that. I'm watching their actions so that they match later. The costume, the hair, those things move, Oh, I mean, it's just so much.
So, I mean, it definitely seems like a really exhausting, like mentally exhausting job.
It's
I
hard.
always wonder how you do it all because, like, this is not all. There's more. But first, before we move on from here, maybe we should share a facing page so people can see like the types of notes you're taking and what they look like
Mhm.
on your page.
Yeah. Boy, that's going to be hard too. But okay. So like we'll see. Oh, this, can we do a second page? Because this is all single camera. There we go. There we go. Okay. So this is when we did 2 camera shoots, right? You can see 2 Apple A cam, 2 B cam, and I've got all the notes. We've got the takes, we've got the timing, we got the print take, and then the notes are like, oh my God, I can't read this. No good. Let me pull it up on my end. Sorry.
So no good is just NG.
Yeah, yeah. So on scene A, scene 2, A cam is handheld, crossing camera left, follow the seated, like the whole shot, and then second sticks for B cam, switch passengers, good, try a few more for fun. Just like notes of everything that happened, and the notes that are good and bad, and not bad, but not good, and incomplete or complete, and the camera roll, and the MOS is no sound, or the sound roll, and frames per second, and all of those
And
things.
so this is really useful for the editor to look at when the editor gets it, right? Like they can really look through these notes and kind of have a sense of like what was working on the day if they weren't there, which they usually aren't. And
Right.
and you talk to the editor in advance, right, about how they like the notes. Tell me
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I usually reach out to the editor prior to shooting if I can, if the editor's been hired and things like that, and just sort of send them a copy of my notes and go, this is what my notes look like. Is that good? Do you have anything specific that you would, in addition, like for me to do? Or is there something that you don't care about, so that I can tailor my notes to what is going to work best for them. And then you can see, there's P's on this. This is the Scarrett software. And so Scarrett software isn't a circle take, it's a P for print take. And so the editor can look at the takes that have the P and know right away those are the best ones, and quickly and easily put together a rough cut.
That's great. That's great. And so, but in regards to improvised lines, is this where you write down if some improvised line has been approved by the director and the writer and whoever else needs to approve it?
If the improvised line has been approved and that's the line now, I'll actually change it in my script, because my script is actually the record of production, right? My notes are the record of production. So I will make a note in the facing page, in the note, about the changes in dialogue, and then I'll actually retype it in the script so that the script has the correct lines.
Okay, awesome. So speaking of the script pages, like while Karen is taking all these notes on the facing page information, she's also making notes on the actual script page, which I like to refer to as the squiggly line page, but
Yeah.
it's actually called aligned script page, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it is. It's called the line script. And so you can see all these lines. On this particular page, you can see every shot on this, every setup was 2 cameras. That's why there's 2 parallel lines on each. Going from the left, that's setup 3, then there's setup 4, 4 Apple, 4 Baker, 3 Baker, et cetera, et cetera. And so when the lines are straight through, that means that was on camera. So on this particular setup, 3 was the master. It was the big wide shot, and we had 2 cameras going, and everything was on camera. Then we got a little bit closer, and you can see on 4 Apple, if you can see, both the cameras were not doing the same thing. So if you look over specifically Haya's line, that's number 3. I also like to line the dialogue so that it's easier.
Number the dialogue.
Did I not have enough coffee today? I number the dialogue so that it's easier for me and the editor when we're jumping around and we're starting mid-scene and we're, like for Greg and for Harry, we can see we started right before Sarah's line 4. And so I can say line 4 to whatever, and that's what would be in my notes. But going back to 4 Apple, you can see that on line 3, highest line, the left line is squiggled and the right line is straight. That means that the A camera was not on her and B camera was.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know, it's hard to see. It's very small.
And when do you put the numbers in the script?
I put the dialogue numbers on right before we shoot because in rehearsal, lines sometimes change. So I don't finalize it until we're ready to shoot. And then I put the numbers in real quick.
So that's something else that you're doing on the fly on the day. I mean, this job seems impossible to me, but
I need more than one script supervisor. Tell your friends. but it actually should be. It is a department. It's a department head, and it shouldn't really be a department of one. And that is one thing that is working. That a lot of the script supervisors who've been around for a while are really pushing for right now. Side note, is to have more than one script supervisor because now that there's so many cameras and so much going on, and we're shooting digital. When it was film, it was a lot slower and a lot easier. But now with the digital, multiple cameras, and go back and go. It's very impossible, really, when you have like 3-4 cameras. You only have 2 eyes, so we can only do what we can do. So.
And you were also taking screen grabs while we were shooting as well, like pictures, still pictures of like certain takes in case we needed to refer back to them, which did end up being actually very useful because like if we shot 2.5 days and the first 2 days were all in an airport set. And the second day we tented the table and got a quick pickup from a scene that we had shot the day before, and we needed to know exactly where everything had been placed on the table. And it was so convenient to have those screen grabs so we didn't have to like scroll through, find the take, scroll through. We had actual screen grabs that we could just be like, where was everything lined up now that we're getting another shot that we had started yesterday.
And this is a great time to plug what I use for my screenshot is my Blackmagic mini recorder. Actually, I do use the BMMR, and I plug that from my computer into the monitor, and I take screen grabs, and I use that all day for matching camera angles when we're shooting on the other side, to match eye lines, to match frame size. I'll send it to the DP. I'll send it to the director. Is this okay? Do you like this? All that.
And that was great for us too, because we actually shot on 2 Blackmagic pocket cameras for the whole film as well. So it was nice that like everyone's on Blackmagic, and it was really easy to just like be cohesive together. So anyways, if we can go back to just for a quick second to the line script page, Karen pointed out that there was a moment where you can see where we started with dialogue line 4 and 4G and 4H. And that was the coverage of Reed Miller, who played Jason, the TSA agent. And this was actually a mistake that I made. And I wanted to show you guys a clip of some stuff that did get pretty complicated in our shoot, and how like we didn't end up having the coverage of his line, "Who are you?" which is line 2. We didn't have it from the right angle. And so the only coverage we had of that crossed the line. And that was, I guess, on take 4A, it looks like, and 4B, but we didn't have it from the right angle. So I'm just going to show you guys a quick clip of the scene to show like how this stuff is useful to refer to. So we have a little
Check.
so the first
Please go over
version
there
here, I'll
to get
show
your
you
passport.
what this is the line. This is the master here.
Excuse me?
This is the master side.
Who are
And
you?
here, see how he's looking the wrong way? Who
Sister?
are you?
ليش مبتسمة لما نطلع من المطار؟
And then we're back on the correct side and just wanted to go to this point here to see now he's looking the right way toward them.
This is a random check.
So we ended up flipping that shot,
Over there.
but we were scared in editing that we didn't have any takes from the right side of his
Excuse
line.
me? Who are you?
Here's what it was supposed to
Your
look
sister?
like.
ليش مبتسمة لما نطلع من المطار؟
Anyways, that was just to show you guys, like, you know, this was a pretty complicated setup because, as you may have noticed in that clip, we started on a reverse shot of the master. So that's where we ended up having that take. And that was like actually something that Karen and I have discussed at great length because like we're both still trying to, you know, figure out how to stop making those kinds of mistakes. And we like went over and over it again. So that was just something I wanted to show that was a mistake, I would say, on both of our parts. You know, I'm going to take more responsibility to me. But like ultimately we did find a solution for it. And that's something that we were able to refer back to the line script to understand like what we actually did have on camera. So we did have the master shot on camera. It was just kind of on his back and it wasn't the angle I wanted to be on in editing. So it wasn't like we didn't have it on camera. We just had gotten it accidentally when we were doing the reverse shot and we didn't start the coverage of Reed's close-up early enough in the script. We started it as he was walking to the table instead of as he was closing the scansion in that scene. So that was just something I wanted to share with you guys as a little whoopsie that we have proof of now.
And we fixed in post. But
we did fix that
really, we want to fix it in prep or on set. And yeah, that it was a lot of super, to your credit, Monique, you had amazing ideas for shots and a lot of them moved a lot, which was really exciting, but it did make it more challenging to, you know, try and edit in my head of what's going to go where, because what shot are we using? It was a lot of fluid movements. But yeah, I'm excited to see the whole film. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, that's exciting. Yes, you will see it soon. We just finished it. So anyway, is there anything else we need to go over that you want to talk about regarding production that we haven't covered yet? No? Okay, so let's talk really quick about post-production and then we'll see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, for sure.
So what part do you play in post-production?
None. Just my notes live on. I'm not usually included in post-production. So I just, at the end of the production, I complete my notes. I make what's called a book and I put all of the facing pages in the facing pages order because, you know, everything's shot all out of order. And I put the script in order and I put it together and I make a nice fancy book. And then I send it off and go, be well.
But the editor could hypothetically call you if they had a question about anything, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm always available for that.
And so you send that to me. I remember getting that. You send it to the editor. Do the editors usually know how to read these notes?
I mean, some do, some don't. I have a key code that I always send with my notes because there's a lot of abbreviations that I use that a lot of script supervisors use. Some use different. I mean, we all sort of have our own thing. There's not like a super standard way of everybody doing everything. So I go, here's how I do it.
That's why you ask them in pre-production rather than in post-production so that they know to expect it. Now, on our shoot, again, we had another little whoopsie, which was that Karen had the discussion with our editor, but our editor ended up getting a higher paying job at the last minute and we switched editors and we ended up working with an editor who really likes to feel out the footage, in a visceral way, and who was awesome. I am not knocking the editor at all. I love him. But he was not as adept or as interested in using the notes. But that said, like when we were lost, like with that shot I just showed of Reed facing the wrong way, it was great to be able to refer back to that and be like, oh yeah, we definitely don't have it. Okay, so questions. Who has questions? I see a question here from Michelle Lindsay. Do you keep a copy for yourself as well?
So I'm going to assume that's for me. Do I keep a copy of my notes? And yes, they are digital. So I keep the copy because there are times way later, I'll get a call from production. Do you have a picture of this thing, because of all my screen grabs? And so, yeah, I keep everything for a while until it's released, basically, until it's done.
Great. Are there any other questions for me or Karen or anything about script supervising? Has anyone decided now that they want to be a script supervisor?
No.
Any questions? Jen, I know you're there. I don't know how long you want to hold for more questions. I mean, I guess I will just conclude unless more questions come up. Okay, so Michelle Lindsay is asking us, do you use a particular program?
Yeah, I do believe I mentioned I use Scarrett. So I use Scarrett for my script supervising program exclusively. And then I also use the Blackmagic mini recorder and the program that comes with that to do my screen grabs.
All right.
More than one script supervisor.
Is asking, let's read the question. Mikhail B is asking, if you were to have more than one script supervisor on set, how would you delegate responsibilities? That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's multiple ways to split it up, right? For me personally, I'd probably have the other person doing the notes. And the other thing we didn't mention is I'm writing down the lenses and, all of that sort of stuff. So my preference is to be watching for actual continuity, watching the actors, making sure all that makes sense, and watching the camera moves and all of that, and have somebody else do the notes. I mean, that's how I would like to split it up.
That makes sense. I mean, you're definitely going to get better continuity if you have one person who's really looking out for everything. And I mean, granted, the focus puller is looking for focus problems, and the DPs usually notice that kind of stuff too, but sometimes they miss it, or sometimes they're like, okay, it's good enough, or sometimes they maybe don't want to admit that they missed it again.
Yeah, and because when I'm tracking actors' actions, I'm making physical notes on a script, right? And so I have to look at what I'm writing to make sure, I'm not just saying, oh, they picked it up with the right hand. I'm saying, oh, they picked it up with the right hand on this word, because that's important to know where they make these moves, right? So I'm writing that down on a specific word so that I can go, because it's happened before. Like, when did I put that wine glass down? I'm like, oh, it's on this word, And so if I'm looking down to write that, I'm not also looking at the monitor in that exact moment, and I might miss something. I mean, it's like, we're human, So if there's one person dedicated with eyes on the monitor without having to go down and write this and then write notes and then write, it would be more helpful.
And so that's your preference, but would that be the preference of the other script supervisors you talked to? Has anyone ever said, well, because you said the problem came with digital and we started shooting with way more cameras, would other script supervisors prefer to be like, I'll be on A camera, you be on B camera? Is that another way you might break it up?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a flexible thing.
Yeah. Cool. I'm just wondering, because it sounds like you guys are having behind the scenes talks. So yeah. I was wondering if that's another way, if there are any other ways that people have discussed breaking up the responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean, I actually talk about this on the podcast. There is an episode where we discuss that. I think it's the history and future episode, where people are talking about different ways that they would like to break it up. So there are multiple ideas. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I am not seeing any other questions. So thanks, Karen. And I want to thank Blackmagic Design for sponsoring this talk. And also for making great cameras that we were able to use in many different ways during our shoot of Random Check. So thanks, everyone, and see you later.